6 days. 6 24-hour periods in the lives of billions of people worldwide. I suspect that most of you today can't really tell me what you did in these days. They span a period of 31 years, but they offer no recognizable pattern or legibility. To most of you, their association begins and ends with their coexistence on this screen. This day started as an average day for me as well. My wife, Andrea, and I were meeting some family for lunch, and we decided to go to a restaurant we've been to a few times. As we got there, Andrea went to the restroom, only to find out that her water broke and that she was going into labor. She returned to the table to break the news to me, and I remember feeling an unprecedented feeling of fear and excitement, kind of like today. So my brother helped me to time the contractions because I couldn't remember when the last one was or do the math to be able to figure out how long it had been. As exhibited by my ability to get lightheaded at the simple act of drawing blood, let's just say there's a reason why I'm an architect and not a doctor. This day was a meaningful day for me. We made it to the hospital. Approximately 8 hours later, after Andrea decided to go ahead and finish lunch, we welcomed Jackson Elwood Kelly into this world. This was a meaningful day for me, a milestone day, significant, life-changing. For you, it may have been a day that didn't yield anything truly significant, and that's okay. And isn't it true, though, that we often gauge our lives based on these milestone days? But what about the other days? As an architect, I was trained to craft form and space through the manipulation and composition of materials. In the built environment, there exists an integral relationship between solid and void. Solid materials, which together make up our cities, and void spaces where we live, work, graduate, get married, birth children, and eventually die. This awareness of the synergistic relationship between solid and void offers me a lens through which I view other things, including time. The milestones in life stick with us. They often disrupt the daily patterns of life. They're the things that we look back on and remember. Now, our brains can only hold so much, so it's inevitable that there's portions of our lives that we're going to forget, that we're not going to remember with any level of detail. And that's okay. The rhythm of life is the things that typically we forget, things that are repetitive, things that happen maybe every day. Daily commutes, dinners with family, frequent conversations with friends and coworkers. The milestones in life are things that disrupt that rhythm. They cause things that bring importance to it because it is different. So if those days are something that maybe we don't remember at any level of detail, one might ask, were they really that important? And besides time and architecture, where else is the gap? And what role does it play? The black lines and the white spaces in the Universal Product Code are equally important. Each of them are measured and quantified to arrive at identification of product. Invented in the 1950s and widely deployed in the 1970s, it's just part of everyday life that we know today, and we don't really think about it. Until recently, we didn't really consider the lines of communication that we use on a daily basis and how those might be interrupted and breached, violating our previous conception of privacy. Instead, we focus on the content, the product, and the end user, or the user at the end terminal. Sometimes the gap is so operational and integral that we don't even really think about it. So in the example you see up here, groupings of letters are associated visually together, and this is done through a strategic use of the gap. The gap is something in this case that uses the Gestalt principle of proximity, which allows our eyes to see groupings of things and to understand relative relative location being something that indicates identity. Sometimes we miss them right in front of us. How many times do you think about the space inside the wall that separates men and women facilities in a public facility? You might think about it after this. This gap is really instrumental in affording privacy and being able to remove waste. I love this example. This is a photograph I took a year ago at Illinois Institute of Technology's OMA's design for the student center there. And what I love about it is the awareness we have of the material and spatial qualities of something as simple as a plumbing wall. The gap is not always neutral either. So in the case of incarceration, the gap can be charged with power and meaning. Jeremy Bentham's panopticon concept, developed in the late 18th century, used this idea to manifest power and control through the use of a gap. Most notably used in the design of prisons, it has come to kind of represent what we understand to be surveillance and security in a modern day situation. As noted in the diagram you see behind me, there's a perimeter of cells that wrap around a single watchtower in the center. The vision to the watchtower inside of it from the prisoner's view was masked so that they couldn't see the guard on the inside. While the guard could not watch every inmate at the same time, the inability for the prisoners to know if they're being watched created a continuous and complete state of surveillance and security. Power and efficiency negotiated through the use of a gap in space and time. And in our cities, the gap is increasing, having a composite effect on our identity and our health. A friend of mine recently made a statement that our cities are becoming more of a collection of neighborhoods and less of a shared vision of a future together. Could that be the case where you live? So back to the issue of time. You might be saying, now Brian, is it really important that every day make it into the Memory Hall of Fame? My response, I don't think so. Recently, I've been challenging myself to cherish the gap as integral and operational in the development of significant context, space for great things to happen. And even if it's not what we remember in 5 years' time, it's fertile ground for growth and impact. 2014 has seen a few milestones for me. My wife and I recently celebrated 10 years of marriage. This fall, my son started kindergarten, and I recently taught him how to ride a bike. These memories will stick with me for a long time. As well, next semester, my family and I will be living in London as I teach on a study abroad program over there. After the first few weeks and the spectacle wears off, daily life will become context again. I expect that this is going to produce probably quite a few significant memories for my family and myself. But more importantly, this might be one of the first memories that my son looks back to if he makes a list of dates sometime from now. I remember being in elementary school and going to the end of the block where I lived and waiting for my dad to return home from work every day. Not every day, most days. I don't know if my dad was expecting to see me or not, or if it was just another one of those days that the daily commute would have been something that just sort of fell into the gap. Upon sight of him, I would turn my bike around, get into ready position, and as he turned the corner, we would race that last half block to the front of our house, with the driveway serving as the finish line. So this is something that, reflecting on this, has allowed me to understand that sometimes a gap for me might be a milestone for somebody else. I'm not sure what my son will remember about me in the future years, and if I will remember him the same way he does. But I do hope that there are days in my timeline which I might see as gaps, and that they're as significant as the races that I had with my dad, of which I always won. Or maybe that's just the way I remember it. So back to the issue of time. What are these dates? It doesn't really matter, right? It's obvious that something happened to me on these days that make up the core of who I am. What matters are the days that led up to these dates and the days that followed. Daily commutes, dinners with family, things that made significant context for great things to happen. So what is your list of dates? And how do they make up the core of who you are? And more importantly, what are the days that are leading up to those dates and the days that are following? My challenge to you today is to consider that your daily interactions with people might just be standard operating procedure for you, but for somebody else, they might be highly formative, making the difference that they needed in that day. Mind the gaps in your life and make them add up to be milestones. Thanks, Dad, and thank you.